morning. My name is Sherry Buchanan. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here to talk about change. We just had a very thought-provoking discussion downstairs in Seekers about change and transitions. And since this is our theme for the month, I'm sure that we'll have many more rich opportunities to explore change. So I'm going to share some ideas, thoughts with you this morning about that too. If humans are the most adaptable of the species, then that means we're the most capable of change, and in a vast variety of ways. Sometimes I think that that's a gift from the evolution gods, and other times I see it as a curse because change can be so confounding. Many of you know that I'm a retired psychologist, and that was a career that certainly focused on change. Why do people change? How do we change? What motivates change? What rewards change? And perhaps most challenging, why are we sometimes so resistant to change? Change is a great paradox in our lives, making it impossible for me to stand here or any of you to say how you feel about change and your capacity to change. Nor can we predict how we're going to react to it always when it comes along. Sidney J. Harris was a Chicago journalist. He died in 1986. And he said, "Our dilemma is that we hate change and love it at the same time. What we really want is for things to remain the same, but get better." And Heraclitus, a pre-Socratic Greek philosopher, seemed fascinated by the unity of opposites, especially when it applied to impermanence. He's the one who told us that the world is constantly changing, even as it remains the same, and that no man ever steps in the same river twice. He also is credited with the axiom that nothing is permanent except change. We have a similar saying, nothing is certain except death and taxes. And I've heard if you have the right accountant, only one of those is actually certain. Think of the contradictions we encounter when we think about change. And as I go through some of these, think about some of the specifics in your life that you have faced or that you know that you are going to be up against. Change can be positive or negative. It can result in great rewards or cruel punishments. It can be a trivial change or totally life-altering. Some changes are reversible. Others are permanent and demand complete accommodation to new ways of experiencing life. Some changes happen gradually, while others are sudden, perhaps even cataclysmic. Most of the changes that my clients and I worked on over the years were not ones that they purposefully set out to explore or to make. They weren't, most of them, into self-realization as a reason for coming to therapy. Change was usually forced on them by gut-wrenching pain or trauma, life circumstances that were unfortunate, by faltering relationships, sometimes by biological factors that cause things like depression and anxiety, and sometimes even by court mandates. Some of them were able to internalize some motivation for change, but for many, external reinforcements or even the threat of punishment were the only reason they could identify for change and for a reason to keep coming to sessions, and that made it harder for them. It's certainly easier to make changes when there's something we ourselves choose to do, as opposed to having them forced on us by others or by life circumstances. I think that's why Unitarian Universalists hold the democratic process so dear. It's also why a church management model like sociocracy, which we are being asked to consider, holds exciting promises for strengthening our ability to change and to adapt to change as a congregation. Whatever the motivation for change and our share of the decision-making process, one certainty is that change upends the status quo. Since we humans are social creatures, we usually operate in a way that change impacts way beyond our individual lives. We usually operate as parts of social groups, part of a couple, part of a family, a work group, social cliques, sports teams, and yes, church congregations. With clients, I frequently use the analogy of a mobile. We've all had one, seen one. Mobiles are art installations, if you will, with multiple moving parts, individual parts, but they're hooked together with strings or wires, making all of the parts interdependent. When hung up, the interdependent parts stir around a little bit, and then they find a balance, an equilibrium. And they may stir a little bit, but nothing major, no major disruptions. But when any one part of the mobile is removed or disturbed, or another part added, all the parts are thrown out of balance and must maneuver to restore equilibrium, which is where the mobile and us are most comfortable. The analogy holds true for most of the groups we participate in. An addition or loss of any one, a change in behavior by any one person, or even a change in a procedure can be very disruptive. This is true for this congregation, as well as for all those other mobiles we may be part of. Think about the impacts of the changes COVID-19 brought to us. We had to adjust how we found community with one another. We lost some congregants. And to this day, we are still trying to figure out how to do this thing we call church. I don't think we've still found our equilibrium. Or think about the challenge of reestablishing a church management system after no one wanted to be president of the board this year. Or our adaptations, or in some cases, our resistance to changing this service time to 10 a.m. and the seekers to 9. For those of you like me who aren't fast movers in the morning, this has been a bit of a challenge. Made a little less harsh today because we got an extra hour overnight. But in any case, change can be unsettling and even a total disruption of things that we are comfortable with, and we often resist. Change can be hard work. It can be scary. It can force us to admit that there are better ways to do things, or it can cause us to question whether we can be competent or comfortable if those changes are made. When routine is interrupted, we sometimes slam on the brakes because we don't like the discomfort of new and different. We don't like that imbalance. We prefer the status quo where we were functioning quite well, thank you. Or we deal with changes by wanting to return to the good old ways we used to do things. I want to address something in particular that I think sometimes interferes with our ability or willingness to change. And that especially relates to how we relate to our outside world. And that's the obstacle that believing that one's actions don't really count and that just one person cannot affect much change. I think that I think we especially value the impact that all of our actions have on others and our world. And I think that we are very conscious and very responsible as individuals about what we contribute to the greater good. But if you're like me, it's always good to be reminded. Alice Walker was the first African-American woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. She said, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. I know that's certainly true for me a lot of times. Dame Jane Goodall, a renowned primatologist and anthropologist, reminded us, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference. You just have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. And I think she probably wouldn't disagree that it's not just what we choose to do, but what we choose not to do that has an impact on our world. And one that I captured from Facebook, and I don't know the original source, says there are times when you must speak out because, not because you're going to change the other person, but because if you don't speak, they have changed you. That one really strikes me. We are in the midst of great change locally in our state and for our nation. Some of the changes are for the greater good, but many others are very frightening, and some would say potentially disastrous for the survival of our planet, for our rights in this society, and for our very freedom. On Tuesday this week, we have Election Day. Some of us have voted early. Some of us have already mailed in our absentee ballots, and others will be going to the polls on Tuesday. Though we won't be choosing a president, and usually midterm elections are not very heavily turned out, but though we are at midterm, it seems that the next decades for us, our children, and even their children really do ride on this election that's coming up this week in a multiple of ways. It's seen as one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. We will choose whether to champion those we will choose whether to vote for those who champion things that we value, such as environmental protection and racial justice and income equality and reproductive and health rights, criminal justice reform, or we will allow continued destruction by those who are repressive and regressive, and sometimes aggressive in seeking power and control. Each of us has one solitary vote among millions to be cast. What difference does it make whether our one seemingly insignificant vote gets cast and counted? Think of it in terms of the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect is a principle of chaos theory. It started with the work of mathematician and meteorologist Edward Norton Lorentz, who used the metaphor of a distant butterfly's tiny disturbance of the air causing a tornado several weeks later on another part of the earth. Putting chaos theory aside because I know nothing about it, we have come to understand butterfly effect as any situation where a small change is supposed to be the cause of larger consequences. Consider the butterfly effect of each you who chooses or decides not to go cast a vote in this election. And consider the butterfly effect of each of us encouraging just one other person to vote their UU values in this election. We had planned to do a phone bank after the service this morning to be part of UUA's Get Out the Vote efforts, but we need to have a town hall in preparation for the upcoming congregational meeting. So I've made an alternative strategy. So you see, you have change and adaptation to change real time. If you are willing to help either later today or sometime tomorrow by just calling a few friends and members of this congregation to encourage them to vote in this crucial election, if they already have, to thank them for their participation in the democratic process, and just to touch base, which we all need to be doing with people we're not seeing very often, then see me before you leave, and I will give you some numbers to call and a few suggestions about things you might say when you talk to people. Every one of these voter encouragement contacts will make a difference, either by motivating someone to get out and vote if they hadn't made a plan to do so, by prompting them to get ready for the next election if they have problems with doing it this time, and thanking them again for participating in the process. I remind you of well-known wisdom from Edward Everett Hale, an author, historian, and Unitarian minister who died in 1909. And I think that Edward Everett Hale would be making some telephone calls if he were with us today. He said, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something I can do." We are all change makers, And do not shirk our responsibilities, and we do the some things that we can do. Whether it's election related or just other acts of kindness or whatever that we put out into the world, those are significant, just like that little butterfly's flutter that causes a huge change somewhere else on earth. Now, even though on a piece of jewelry that I have and on our wayside pulpit out front, Mahatma Gandhi is said to have come up with the phrase, "Be the change you wish to see in the world," he probably didn't really say it that way. What he did say is a great way to end today. We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change toward him. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is, and the source of our happiness. We need not wait to see what others do. And so, my friends, go forth and be the change. Thank you.